There are two types of problems for z-tests that we're going to be looking at. The first one is when you're given sample data to solve the problem. The next example is when you're using sample statistics. In this example, we're going to be using sample data. So, a football coach thought that his players could bench press more than a mean weight of 250 pounds. It is known that the standard deviation is 25 pounds. The players thought that the mean weight was more than that, too. They asked 15 of their teammates for their estimated max lift on the bench press exercises and got the following data. Conduct a hypothesis test at the 0.01 level of significance to determine if the mean bench press is more than 250 pounds. So, I'm given a population standard deviation because it tells me it is known that the standard deviation is 25. I'm also given a population mean of 250 pounds. I'm also given a level of significance, and I'm given sample data. So I'm going to take that sample data, put it in Minitab, and answer this question. So I'm going to go to Minitab. I'm going to open it up. And if you see here, I already have my weights in there. I went ahead and put it in. I put it in C1. I labeled it as weights, and then I put the values down. I'm going to go to Stats, Basic Statistics, One Sample Z-Test. I click on it, and what I want to do is I can either do one or more samples, or I can do summarized data. For this one, because I was given sample data, I'm going to do one or more samples. I click in the box here, and it puts weights over here in this box on the left. I double click on it, and it populates it. So it tells Minitab, use this data set to answer the question. Here I put my population standard deviation of 25. I've checked perform a hypothesis test, and I put my hypothesized mean of 250, and I hit options. My confidence level is 99 because I had a 0.1 level of significance. My alternative hypothesis is greater than because remember, he wanted to know if it was more than 250. I hit OK and hit OK again, and I'm given a lot of information. This up here in descriptive statistics gives me the sample information. Sample size is 15, sample mean is 236.13, sample standard deviation is 30.42. And again, it tells me my standard deviation right here. If I go to test, it tells me about my hypothesis test. It gives me my null and my alternative hypothesis. Your null hypothesis will be different than what we talked about in the PowerPoint. Minitab has a default of equal in the null for every hypothesis. We go a little bit further and we give directional signs to help for understanding of the concept. So the alternative of this is that the mean is greater than 250, which is correct. I get a z-value of negative 2.15 and a p-value of 0.984. Again, Minitab has given me everything I need. So now I can go back to my PowerPoint and start solving it. So from here, I want to go ahead and talk about, I know it's a z-test. I know it's a z-test because they give me a population standard deviation. Again, I went ahead and talked about my null and my alternative hypothesis. The null is the mean is less than or equal to 250 pounds. Again, Minitab defaults the null till equal, but for us, we're going to go ahead and add that less than sign. Why do I do that? Because I want to account for anything that can go wrong or can happen with this data set. My alternative is that the mean is greater than 250 pounds. Is it a right, left-tailed, or two-tailed test? It's right-tailed because there's a greater than symbol in the alternative. Is the population standard deviation known, and what is it? Yes, it's known, and it's 25 pounds. It was given in the problem. Here are the instructions of what I just did, and here's the actual output. So let's talk about it. Again, I was given the sample mean, sample standard deviation, and sample size. Again, I had to be really careful and pick z-test instead of the t-test that we're going to learn about later because I had a population standard deviation. So find the z-test statistic. I got negative 2.15, p-value 0.984. So at a level of significance at 0.01, what did I do? My p versus my alpha. So 0.984 is greater than 0.01. So I fail to reject the null. Why? Because my p was larger than my alpha. So my null, where the mean is less than or equal to 250 pounds, is found to be true. So let's write this out in a complete sentence. At the 1% level of significance, the true mean weight lifted is not more than 250 pounds, or you could even put is not greater than 250 pounds. So, because I failed to reject the null, I need to conclude based on not supporting the alternative hypothesis. Because remember, my alternative hypothesis is what I was talking about when I began. I wanted to know if they could bench press more than 250 pounds. Because I failed to reject the null, I found that it is not true and they cannot bench press more than 250 pounds. Again, you've got to look at what the problem's asking before you conclude it to make sure that you're doing the proper conclusion.